The Suzuki DR650 is like Sam Elliott's character Wade Garrett in Roadhouse. It's old, it has a few obvious weak points, but this thing can still kick ass and look damn good doing it. I've been dying to get my hands on a DR650 for a very long time. Came very close to buying one actually before my CRF 300L fell into my lap. I'm so thankful to South Pacific Auto Sales and South Pacific Power Sports in Albany, Oregon for the opportunity to borrow this bike, put 100 miles on it, test it in the most diverse conditions I could think of. So some trail riding, some forest roads, did some highway, some freeway speeds, the most sort of typical adventure riding scenarios that I could come up with in 100 miles. That's what this review is based on, so I just want to say thanks to them and encourage you to check out their website, or if you're local here in Oregon, maybe pop over to their showroom in Albany. They have new and used bikes, gear, and everything. This is the classic, the dinosaur, the progenitor of our current crop of dual sport and adventure motorcycles, the venerable Suzuki DR650, first released when I was 10 years old. Yes, this bike has been around for over 30 years, virtually unchanged. If somehow, despite that, you don't know all the basic specs of this bike, let me just give you the basics so that we're all on the same page. The DR650 has a 644cc four-stroke air-cooled single-cylinder, single overhead cam engine. It has 43-ish horsepower depending on who you ask. It has a Mikuni carburetor. This bike is not fuel injected. 5-speed transmission, 10.4 inches of ground clearance, 10.2 inches of suspension travel. It has a 34.8-inch seat height, but you can use the optional factory lowering kit to make it 33.2 inches. It weighs 366 pounds wet, and the MSRP for the 2024 is $6,849 US. So like always, let's start with the pros. What do I like about this bike? I don't even know where to begin. There's a lot of things I like about this bike. It is a lightweight-ish bike. It's a lightweight off-road motorcycle when you consider it against all the dual sports and adventure bikes out there. It is much lighter than its direct competitor, the KLR 650. It's only slightly heavier than its younger and smaller brother, the DRZ 400, at 370 pounds. Now that's not as light as a KTM, which is over 100 pounds lighter, but this bike costs half as much and does a lot different things. But the thing is, you got that lightweight, but you also have tons of power. I was continually impressed with the power of this motorcycle. I was coming home yesterday following a log truck thinking, oh, I'm sure we're going 55, but whatever, I'm not going to bother to pass him. And I looked down and I was going 80 and I didn't even know it. That does not happen on most of my dual sports. So it has an interestingly geared transmission as well, but plenty of power, and yet it's powerful in a very controllable, predictable, easy to ride and easy to use way. It doesn't come on all at once. It's a very linear power curve that I think even a newer rider could handle. It's easy to get your feet down. 34.8 inches sounds high, but when you compare it to like 37 inches on other bikes, even the DRZ is around that. I couldn't believe how easy it is to get my feet down on this bike. I was balls on my feet, both feet, the whole time. I was able to get my heels down now and then. I never worried about uneven ground or not being able to get my feet down when waddling through something difficult or riding on hard terrain. And it's just super confidence inspiring. You knew it was coming, that you can get your feet down so easily. And if you're a shorter rider, you can sacrifice 2 inches of ground clearance and get it even closer to the ground. For reference, I have a 30-inch inseam and I can get my feet on the ground easily on this bike, way easier than a lot of similar competitive bikes that I've ridden. Part of that is because it is narrow too. It's easier to get your foot directly down, keep your legs straight and maximize your inseam, but it's just super duper confidence inspiring. It's also super capable. It's a total tractor. It's a goat. It is a lot like a goat, actually, now that I think about it. That's not in my notes, but it'll just slowly climb up anything you want to climb up. And I had zero issues with that. I rode with Dennis in Death Valley. He was on a DR650 the whole time. He had no issues with anything that we did. It's not going to get you there fast, but it will get you there. And the technology is old, but it's super reliable and easy to work on. And the other great thing about this bike is that it has been around for a long time, which always leads to a large sort of community and a diverse and, you know, lots of options in the aftermarket. But this bike is something else. You know, people use the term cult following a lot, but I think in the case of this bike, it's actually true. I cannot believe the aftermarket options available for this bike. I cannot believe the people that come out of the woodwork when you talk about this bike. I can't believe there's so much stuff you can do. You can make it into anything you want. You can replace basically everything on it, and most people recommend that you do that. I think the stock DR650 is great. That's what I got to ride, but it can can be greatly improved with some aftermarket stuff. So really it's a tabula rasa. It's your blank slate that you start with and customize it into the adventure dual sport bike of your dreams. It has proven bulletproof reliability, 30 years of testing and experience to know that, and it is just ridiculously versatile. Like I said, with this aftermarket that exists, it can be your long haul highway tour that you ride around the world, or you can turn it into the ultimate hard enduro bush pig like the guys in Australia do. There's so much video of people in Australia doing ridiculous stuff on these bikes. It is probably the favorite bike, as far as I can tell, of the cross-training enduro skills gang, which is a channel that I've watched a ton, and I actually get to meet Barry in about a month, so that's going to be awesome. But those guys do unbelievable things on these bikes, and they try all the other bikes and they keep coming back to it because it just is what it is. It hits a real sweet spot. But it's not perfect, and a 30-year-old design is going to have some flaws. Let's talk about what they are. Well, first of all, if Will Smith were here, he would definitely not say this bike is the new hotness. He would definitely say this is an old busted joint.
Old and busted, new hotness.
There's nothing modern about this bike. It's lacking in modern safety features like ABS or traction control. It's lacking in modern convenience features like a gear indicator or cruise control. It's lacking a fuel gauge or any digital instrumentation at all. This is the most old school, looks like a 1940s Willys Jeep gauge cluster. The carburetor is a unique challenge that many people are not accustomed to, especially if you've been riding modern bikes. You know, you really gotta let it warm up. Your performance will change depending on your elevation. You gotta use a choke. These are not things you have to do with a fuel injected bike. None of them are deal breakers in my experience, having owned a couple carbureted bikes now, but it is different and you need to be aware of that going in. It can be annoying. It's heavy for an off-road bike. It's even heavy for a dual sport. You know, it's a lot heavier than even the 300L and the KLX 300, much heavier than those bikes. It's lighter than the KLR. It's much lighter than a true adventure bike, but for a dual sport, this is a very heavy dual sport, which makes sense because it's got like the most displacement of almost any single cylinder dual sport out there. It's way more expensive than it should be new at $7,000, and it needs mods out of the gate. The seat is not that comfortable. You're gonna need new mirrors. The foot pegs are terrible. That's true of most new bikes, and some would argue, the more experienced owners would argue, you also need to like rejet the carb and open up the airbox. And you know, those are the kind of things I feel like you buy the bike new, you put the convenience and safety stuff on it, ride it for a while, and then you feel like you've exceeded or reached the max potential of the stock bike. Then you start doing that stuff, but that's up to you. Your mileage may vary. And the suspension is, again, it's old, it's outdated, it's bouncy. It did a good job soaking up the little bumps. I found this very comfortable and stable on loose terrain, but it's not gonna take the big bumps really, really well. Again, you're gonna have to have it sprung for your weight if you wanna do anything super hardcore, but this isn't that bike. This is a putzing around, exploring the woods, take you anywhere you wanna go bike. This isn't a how fast can I ride this MX Track type bike. If you're buying it for that, somebody steered you wrong. I only have 100 miles on this bike, admittedly, but I have a lot of experience on a lot of other off-road bikes, and I feel like, to me, this bike can be summed up in a metaphor that I also used in the test ride video. I talked about how the transmission is unique, and I feel like you're always simultaneously in the wrong gear because it never feels exactly right where you need to be because the gear ratios are so high, but you're also in the right gear because all you have to do is apply a little throttle and some clutch work and it'll work no matter what gear you're in. This bike is that. It is like not perfect for anything. It's not the best tool for anything, except maybe putzing around in the woods. Like I said, I think it's great for that, but it's good at everything. You can make everything work with a little bit of skill, adjustment, mods, whatever. This bike is the ultimate distillation of everything dual sport. It is the purest form of dual sport riding, which makes sense because this is the bike that sort of inspired the current crop of dual sport and adventure bikes. Its DNA is in every off-road street legal bike that you can buy today. I say confidence inspiring a lot because, you know, that's my catchphrase. I think I've said it 3 times in this video, but this might be the most confidence inspiring bike of all time. It's easy to ride and handle thanks to its low seat height and relatively light weight. It's easy to work on because the technology in the bike was invented by Fred Flintstone himself. You're confident taking it places and doing dumb stuff on it because it's cheap and easy to fix and or find replacement parts if something were to go wrong. And it's the ultimate tabula rasa for creating the adventure platform of your dreams, and the parts and know-how exist in the massive community to help even the most inexperienced rider and mechanic make their dream vision of this bike happen. It's like a time machine that takes you back to a time when riding was simpler. Just you and the machine. No computers intervening or giving you information. No fancy readouts or ECU automatically adjusting to changing conditions. It's dual sport motorcycling in its purest, simplest, and most dangerous form. without those safety features. I've wanted to ride one of these for a long time, and now that I have, I believe the hype. If you're looking for a unicornish dual sport bike and don't mind the advantages and disadvantages of an old capital OLD design, this is a great bike to consider. There's a reason it hasn't been changed in 30 years, and yes, I know, emissions, I get it, they can't change it much, but they could stop selling it. But they don't, because people keep buying it because it's a good bike that lasts a long time and takes you a lot of places. There's a reason people keep buying it and why it's survived this long when other competitors have not. People always ask me, if I could only have one bike, what bike would it be? And it's such a tough question because I do a lot of different things on motorcycles, right? I go on long road trips. You know, I rode to Canada last year, all the way up to the northern tip of Vancouver Island. I do BDRs. At least once a year I try to do a BDR. I like to go putz around on abandoned logging roads and explore stuff. And I like to go and hit OHV areas and ride trails, ride rocky, technical stuff. And, you know, trying to find a bike that is capable enough to go on a long road trip, but also lightweight and confidence inspiring enough to take on a single track trail is difficult. And really, there aren't many out there that exist that can probably do all those things. But man, if I had to choose, if you held a gun to my head and said, you only get one bike for the rest of your life, what's it gonna be? Well, you're looking at it. If you enjoyed this review, if you want to see more dual sport adventure motorcycle camping reviews and adventures, please consider subscribing to the channel, because I'm the dork in the road and I want to be your internet riding buddy, and I'm better than your regular riding buddies because I come with a mute button. Thanks again to South Pacific for loaning me this bike. If you get a chance to pop in and say hi and tell them Dork sent you, that would sure go a long way towards them maybe loaning me another bike, maybe the V-Strom 800 to do a similar test on. But for now, and as always, I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!